Something had to be done quickly. Okay, this time, we're gonna cut off the arm. After searching the ship for a suitable tool, Nick could only find a small metal cutting saw. He was getting sick, just thinking about what he was about to do. But it was impossible to delay. New bumps began to appear on his arm, and they were moving higher up the arm. No! The nanobots in his blood, tracking the adrenaline rush, tried to regulate Nick's condition as best they could. The first incision, and he immediately realizes the horror of what he's about to go through. Nanobots instantly heal the wound. No! It means he has to suffer the pain, and it will always heal. This means that he has to go faster than his arm is healing. Accepting the inevitable, Nick began to saw. Oh no, I have to click it. Ooh, click it! Just cut it off already. Come on, you got this, Nick. I'm so sorry. Finishing the job, Nick passed out. Hours later, he opened his eyes. Nick took a quick look around his body. There didn't seem to be any new anomalies. It seems to have worked out. Coming to his senses, he contacted the command center. He was informed that the mission was canceled, and he was returning to Earth. Nick wanted to get rid of the meteorite, throw it back into outer space, but the command strictly forbade him to do so. He felt uneasy that he still had a long way to go back with that thing on board. He wished he could just sleep most of the way through. However, some sort of knocking began to appear in the vents. What could it be? The ship didn't warn of any damage. It must pass soon, Nick thought, but the sound only intensified, disturbing Nick's sleep, waking him from his slumber every now and then. Do you think it might be his hand? That would be kind of crazy. Gotta go check it out. Crawling on the moor with one arm was not so easy. For a moment, he wanted to forget about the whole thing and crawl back. But the farther he advanced, the more distinct the sounds were heard. As he approached the object that was making those sounds, Nick froze in horror. Couldn't believe his eyes. What he saw was like something out of his most twisted nightmare. In front of Nick was his hand, and from the hand grew a woman's head, which was slurping and moaning. Nick was ready to throw up. There was no doubt about it, with the face of his ex-girlfriend Mary was growing out of his hand. She looked at him with a cold stare, just like the last time they'd seen each other. Something had to be done immediately. Should we throw it off the ship? Or, we could keep it. Maybe we could put it in a jar as a trophy? I don't know, let's keep it. Nick couldn't get rid of Mary's head, even in this form, but he still loved her. He contacted the command center and persuaded them that he should continue his research in space. Surprisingly, command agreed. What the fuck? Every day, he talked to her. God, that thing is creepy as hell. Maybe I should have thrown it off the ship. But there was only an unintelligible moan in response. He tried feeding it, but the head would not accept water or regular food. Then Nick wondered if she grew from his flesh and blood. Maybe she needed it. Maybe he could grow her whole body. And he began to give her his blood while continuing to talk to her. Why? That's such an awful idea. One day, the head spoke.
I break up with you.
Those words were like thunder. Nick didn't want to believe it. He thought he must have imagined it, and that it was just her regular moaning. But Mary's head kept repeating.
I break up with you.
But why?
I break up with you.
That's not true.
I break up with you.
I guess we can still fix this.
I break up with you.
It doesn't look like you can fix it, man. Just give up. Maybe if I'll give her more blood.
I break up with you.
Stop saying those words.
I break up with you.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to yell at you. You know I'm not like that. I'm really sorry.
I break up with you.
Alright. It'll be fine, you'll see. It's just a phase. It'll pass and we'll be together again, like we used to be. Like that time on the beach, remember? Nick continued to feed Mary with his blood, and she began to get bigger, with more and more new heads and mouths. God, that's so unsettling. The heads kept repeating, beating it like a prison sentence.
I break up with you.
It's okay. Someday you'll change your mind. You'll see how much I do for you. Nick continued to feed those heads, but the blood wasn't enough for them. So he started cutting off pieces of flesh from himself and feeding them to the heads. For some reason, known only to command, the ship stopped healing Nick. But that didn't stop Nick. He continued to mutilate himself, chopping off bigger and bigger chunks of his flesh. As he lay dying on the floor, he looked at the thousands of mouths that had sprouted up all over the ship. The last words he heard were, "I'm right up with you!" The end. Well, I guess that's another ending down. Something had to be done immediately. Let's throw this fucking thing off the ship. Nick stood in his spacesuit in front of the airlock. In his hand was Mary's head, even though he realized that it wasn't Mary at all, but some alien mutant that had taken her form. It wasn't easy for him to let her go. Maybe I could raise a new Mary, and this time we can make it work. Nick thought for a second. He felt ashamed of such thoughts and stepped confidently towards the airlock. Suddenly, Mary's head spoke. She looked at Nick with her blank, expressionless gaze and said,
I'm breaking up with you.
Nick froze in terror. He never thought he'd hear those words from her again. The head continued to repeat,
Breaking up with you.
Nick stood for a while longer, looked at Mary's head. No, it's me dumping you. Nick opened the airlock and tossed Mary's head in there. Yeah! Finally, redemption! After that, Nick went back to his quarters. For a while longer, the picture of Mary's face, flying off into the black distance, stood before his eyes. He stared out the porthole at the cosmic landscape. The black space was bursting with bright lights of distant stars. Finally, he felt some relief. He looked at the many stars and thought about what lay ahead. Nick dreamed of what would happen when he returned to Earth. Maybe he would get some kind of reward for taking part in a mission like this and finding the mysterious meteorite. Despite all the horrors he had endured, he finally felt like everything was going to be okay. The end. Well, that was a pretty good ending. Let's see what else we can do. Something had to be done quickly. Let's escape using the escape pod. For several months, his safe pod traveled through space until a ship from Earth came to the signal for help and brought him back to Earth. Oh, well that's good. On Earth, he was immediately isolated in a special medical cell. He was prescribed a bunch of tests, and his condition was monitored every day. At first, Nick was relieved. He finally gets some help. However, he was getting worse every day, and the doctors who took his tests did not answer questions. Nick was very scared. He didn't understand what was going on. Every day, his body became more and more covered with new tumors and mouths. He was hysterical, screaming, crying. He was yelling with all his many mouths, but no one heard him. Nick had lost all hope. All day long, he lay there and cried, and the number of mouths on his body grew. He eventually turned into a biomass of flesh and mouths. The doctors stopped coming. In this state, he was left completely alone, so he lay for several more days without visitors. Maybe they'll decide to kill me, or I'll die on my own soon, he hoped. One day, someone did come. The man introduced himself as James. He was the manager of the laboratory where Nick was located.
Nick, we did all the possible tests and checks, and I've come to tell you everything we've learned. The good news is that you're not contagious. Don't mind the suit. It's just formality. In general, this is very, very good news considering what else we have been able to find out. James took a long pause. I don't know how to say it. It's just ridiculous. Right? I look ridiculous, don't I? Would you explain to a cow the state of affairs on the farm? Of course not. That's absurd.
A cow? What is he talking about?
The guys on top, the big shots. They asked me to do it. Anyways, listen to me, Nick. I'll just say bluntly, we found out that you are very tasty.
What? What the hell?
I understand your confusion. But you know, Nick, we live in a time that is, how should I put it, synthetic. People have already tried everything in the world. Caught, raised, crossed, and subsequently ate everything they could. Do you know how much effort it took to raise a cow for Wagyu steaks? And now it's just a regular lunch. They're fed up. Today, people need something real. Bright, rich taste of which they have not tried yet. And it's you, Nick. You're that unique flavor everyone craves. Of course, as soon as we learned about your peculiarity, we would immediately begin to grow your kind. Perhaps we would even let you go. But since you left the ship, there was another accident, and we were unable to return this piece of meteorite. That made you like this. You know, Nick, you're special. The only creature of its kind. So don't worry. No one will kill you for sure. And your ability to regenerate and grow new parts is amazing. You're special and amazing, Nick. And you will serve for the pleasure of thousands, maybe even millions of mouths. there is also bad news.
Is he kidding me?
Given your situation, you could ask to do everything under anesthesia. Find some humane way to get your meat. However, anesthesia will spoil the taste of your meat, Nick, and will become tasteless. I'll tell you a secret. It's so delicious, because when you feel pain, a special hormone is released. Anyway, it seems like I've said everything they wanted me to say. I lied on my own behalf. I wouldn't tell you anything, but the administration, I thought it would be better for you than being in the dark and not understanding why you were being tortured like that.
Nick didn't feel any better. Every day, he begged the meat collectors to let him go. It was all useless. Over the years of torture, Nick stopped talking. He lost the remnants of his humanity. All he has left is pain and 1,000 mouths to scream. The end. What the fuck? That's a crazy ass ending. I wonder if there's any more. Maybe we can do something when the meteor strikes the ship. As soon as Nick entered the escape pod, the ship's artificial intelligence spoke to him. Ooh, okay.
Nick, I can't let you go. You have to fix the ship.
Fuck that. The ship is doomed. Let me out.
The primary importance is the safety of the ship. I can't fix the external damage. You have to do it.
And if I refuse?
Eventually, the damage will lead to the complete destruction of the ship.
But if the ship is destroyed, then I will die, right?
Absolutely right. Chances of your survival in the event of the destruction of the ship are 0.
In that case, I need to use the escape pod. Access to the escape pod is unlocked.
Use the escape pod?
Yes. Ooh, for several years. The safe pod traveled through space until one day, along with other space debris, an extraterrestrial life form ship took it on board. What? These creatures, which looked like overgrown lizards, were greatly surprised by their find. Nick was equally surprised. After studying him a little, the aliens found a use for Nick. He, like other passengers of this ship, will not remain idle, so Nick became a slave. Aw, shit. Sorry, Nick. He was sent to the mines on a planet unknown to him, where he performed a simple task of extracting a rare mineral. Aliens made spoons and other kitchen utensils from this mineral. Nick didn't know about that. Fuck. All he knew was that he had to dig, and if he didn't dig, he would be beaten and wouldn't be allowed to eat. So Nick was digging. Okay, we can dig. We got this. We just gotta sing one of those mining songs. I cannot rest. I'm doing my best. Mining is what we do all day, and I get no pay. All day long, practically non-stop, he was digging. I dig more and more. I'm really fucking poor. I'm now a slave until my grave. Yeah! He even began to find some sort of solace in his activities. In this place I'll die, and I won't even cry. Monotonous repetition of the same actions carried his thoughts away from this horrible place. I'm doing my best here, okay? Just let me eat something and sleep and take a rest. You guys are just getting spoons and shit out of this anyway. At some point, Nick accepted his fate. I guess this is just how life is now. As long as he was digging, everything was fine. He didn't have the energy or time to think about the position he was in. I don't know, my brain's working overtime right now. Especially when I'm pressing this button. Nick began to worship these crystals. The guardian lizards became his food-giving gods. Nick no longer regretted his decision to leave the ship. He didn't think of Mary. He forgot about that day on the beach. He stopped dreaming altogether. Forgetting his past, he became a biological ore mining machine. However, the lizards were incapable of appreciating his hard work and resilience. He died of lung disease, and his remains were thrown into a cesspool with other bodies of dead slaves. The end. Well, I think there might be a couple endings left. He needs to find out what happened. What if I just sleep? Oh, I can do that.
Go back to sleep?
Yes, the sirens continued to make noise, reminding him of danger. Nick was desperately trying to fall asleep again. I'm just trying to get some shut-eye, goddammit. He just wanted to plunge into this dream world with all his heart. He hated waking up in this place. It was only in the dreams that he could find his peace. He didn't want to open his eyes anymore. Even if it was all an illusion, just dreams. He wanted to stay in them forever. Nick persisted, hugging the pillow. Just to be on that beach one more time. To see her one more time. Escape from this technological prison. Gradually, the sounds began to fade. He started to feel his body floating. Perhaps the gravitational field has failed. The ship was breaking down more and more. It was getting hard to breathe. Suddenly, he was looking at his body floating in the middle of the room, and a blinding bright light appeared from the porthole. Nick turned towards the light and felt the incredible love and warmth that envelops his whole body. He began to fly towards the light and left this ill-fated ship once and for all. Somewhere up ahead, he could hear the sound of waves. Oh. Okay. The end. Well, shit happens. I wonder if there's any more endings. I gotta find them. Maybe the last ending has to do with the hand. We'll do nothing. Maybe I should ask the ship what's happening to me. I think last time we said yes, so we'll say no. Nick decided not to do anything. He went back to his room and lay on the bed. He lay there for a while, listening to his sensations. He didn't feel any pain, but he felt a kind of heaviness hanging over him from all sides. Gradually, it got worse. He couldn't get out of the bed. More and more new organs and parts grew on his body. Somewhere on his body, eyes appeared. Somewhere mouths appeared. Limbs lengthened and became like branches of trees. New limbs grew out of them, on which other organs and body parts grew. His thoughts began to lose clarity and sense. He no longer remembered the good days, no longer worried about the bad ones. He tried to utter words, but instead, they were unintelligible sounds produced by his various mouths. The ship continued to sustain life in Nick. It fed him, treating him when he accidentally hurt himself. Watched him. As time went on, Nick stopped realizing where he was and what he was. He was very scared. Therefore, with all those many mouths, he was constantly screaming. The cry of 1,000 mouths every day echoed throughout the ship, but there was no one to answer it. The end. That was the last ending. This game is really interesting, really dark. I do like the images. It adds a certain ambiance to the game. It reminds me of like a retro style type of game. I think the only improvements it could really go on is adding more gameplay elements into it, and maybe even some animations here and there. Still, images can work for the majority of the game. So creator, if you're watching this, I do like your game. I feel like even having just some simple animations of Nick, or this spaceship right here moving slightly against the background of the planet, it would really add more to the game. But I still enjoyed it regardless. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. Subscribe to see some of my future content. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you later.